My wife betrayed me with her boss, stole $200, $0 from our joint account, and now she's trying to claim our house worth $750, $0 in a messy legal battle that I never saw coming. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling a story about how my wife cheated on me with her boss, stole a couple $100,000 from our joint account, and now she's trying to throw our house, worth over $750,000, into some messy legal fight. Honestly, it's like watching a bad movie unfold in real life, and I still can't believe I didn't see the signs earlier. Everything seemed fine, or so I thought. We had our routine, our little life together, and I was just trying to build a future with her. But the truth is, all the warning signs were there, I just refused to see them. It started about 6 months ago. Had been acting a little off, more distant, less interested in sex, and suddenly she was working late more often. At first, I thought it was just stress at her job. She's a high-powered marketing exec, always busy, always on her phone. But then I noticed her phone was password protected, which was unlike her. She'd always been pretty open about her stuff. I'd catch her deleting messages, hiding her phone when I came into the room. Little things, but enough to make me uneasy. I asked her about it once or twice, but she just brushed it off, called me paranoid, or said I was overthinking. Then came the real shocker. I was going through our bank statements, because honestly, I'm the kind of guy who likes to keep an eye on our finances, and I noticed a series of transactions I didn't recognize. Large wire transfers, multiple withdrawals, all adding up to around $200, $0. That's a lot of money, especially considering we don't exactly live extravagantly. We're comfortable, sure, but I never suspected of having such a hidden stash. I looked into it more, and it turns out she'd been funneling money out of our joint account over the past few months, small amounts at first, then bigger, more suspicious transfers. I was furious, confused, and honestly feeling betrayed. How could she do this? Why would she steal from us? That was the moment everything changed. I started digging deeper. I checked her emails, her social media, and I found out she'd been having an affair with her boss, Daniel. I'd seen her texts, flirty, suggestive messages, even outright sex talk. She'd been lying to my face for months, telling me she was working late, going to conferences, meeting clients. Meanwhile, she was sneaking around with Daniel, probably screwing him in hotel rooms or his office. It made me sick to think about it. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, was betraying me so blatantly. And the money, God, the money she was stealing from us to support her affair, probably paying for her hotel stays, dinners, gifts. It was all so clear now. The worst part was figuring out how she'd lied so effortlessly. She told me she loved me, that she wanted a future together. Meanwhile, she was screwing her boss, spending our savings, and probably planning to leave me. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, trying to process how she could do this. It was a sickening feeling, feeling betrayed by the person I'd given my life to. I'd always thought we had a solid marriage, but it turns out I was just blind to what was happening under my nose. I confronted her that night. I had all the evidence laid out, screenshots of the messages, bank statements, everything. She was in the living room, pretending to be innocent, acting like I was overreacting. She told me I was crazy, that I didn't understand her, that she was just stressed at work. She said she loved me but needed something more in her life. She spun this whole story about how she was under pressure and that Daniel was just a friend, that I was paranoid and jealous. She even accused me of snooping, saying I was invading her privacy. That's when I realized she was good at lying, better than I thought. She was a master at spinning stories, making herself the victim. I didn't know what to say at first. I felt numb. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to yell, to scream, to do something, but all I could do was stand there and listen to her lie through her teeth. Inside, I was furious, hurt, and just devastated. How could she do this? How could she lie to me so effortlessly? I'd always been a good husband, worked hard, paid the bills, supported her dreams. And she was out there screwing her boss, stealing our money, and trying to convince me it was all my fault. I knew then that I had to do something. I couldn't just let her get away with it. I had to protect what was mine, what we built together. This wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about my dignity, my trust, my life. After she finished her latest round of spinning her lies, I felt like I was in some kind of fog. My head was pounding and my stomach was twisted in knots. I looked at her, the woman I'd loved, the woman I'd married, and saw nothing but a stranger, someone who'd betrayed everything we had. Her words about stress, needing something more, all sounded hollow now. I knew she was lying, and I knew I couldn't let her keep doing this. I had to figure out what my next move was, but honestly, I was just overwhelmed with anger and sadness. For days afterward, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the way she looked at me when she was lying, the way she tried to pretend everything was normal. I kept replaying those messages, those bank transactions, the moments when I had almost caught her but hadn't. It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I started questioning everything, our entire marriage, whether I ever really knew her at all. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and stupid for not noticing the signs sooner. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss all the red flags? I also started to realize that I couldn't just confront her and hope things would go back to normal. That was never going to happen. She was deep into her lies, and I knew I needed a plan. I needed to get proof, solid proof of everything: her affair, her theft, her plans to take the house. I couldn't trust her anymore, not even a little bit. I reached out to a lawyer friend of mine, Mark, who specializes in divorce and property disputes. I told him everything, and he told me I had a strong case, especially with the bank statements and the messages. But he also warned me that was a manipulative woman and she'd probably fight dirty. In the meantime, I started gathering my own evidence. I downloaded all her emails, backed up her texts, and even installed a discreet recording device in the house, just in case. I didn't want to do anything illegal, but I needed to protect myself. I also kept an eye on her, watching her movements. She was still acting suspicious, coming home late, sneaking around her phone. It was clear she was trying to cover her tracks, but I was determined not to let her get away with it. I needed to be ready for the inevitable legal battles, and I couldn't trust her to be honest. One night, I caught her slipping her phone into her purse when I wasn't looking. I looked at her face, saw that cold, calculating look she had now, and I knew she was planning something. That's when I decided I had to act fast. I told her I was done playing nice, that I knew everything, and that I was going to protect what's mine. Her reaction was priceless. She started crying, trying to guilt-trip me, telling me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid. She even called me insecure. Said I didn't trust her because I was jealous, but I knew better. I wasn't jealous, I was angry. Angry that she'd lied, cheated, and stolen from us all at once. I also started talking to a few close friends and family about what was happening. I needed support, people who could give me advice or just listen. It was hard to open up, especially about the details, about her affair, her stealing, her lies. But I knew I couldn't handle this alone. The more I talked, the clearer it became that I was in a war and I needed to be strategic. I decided I'd keep pushing forward with the legal route, but I also knew I had to prepare myself emotionally. This wasn't just about the money, it was about my dignity, my trust, and my sense of stability. I started to realize that wasn't going to go down without a fight. She's always been manipulative, bitchy when cornered, and she's got a way of spinning everything to make herself look innocent. I could see her trying to turn the tables, blame me for everything, and make me the bad guy. That's when I knew I had to stay calm, gather more evidence, and let the law do its work. I also made sure to document every interaction, every lie, every suspicious move she made. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me or make me doubt myself. The most shocking thing was discovering her plans to claim the house, our house, worth a fortune. She's already hired a lawyer, and I found out she's trying to use the affair and the theft as leverage to get the house in the divorce. She's trying to spin it as her rightful claim, saying she contributed emotionally and financially, even though she's the one who stole the money and cheated. I was furious when I saw her lawyer's initial filings. It was a clear attempt to steal what I worked so hard for, but I wasn't about to let that happen. I had my own lawyer now, and I prepared to fight for every penny, every inch of that property. Honestly, I don't know where this is going to end. I just know that I'm not going to let her ruin me. I've lost a lot emotionally, but I'm determined to come out of this with what's rightfully mine. I've learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes the person you love the most can turn out to be the biggest liar. It's a brutal lesson, but one I won't forget. And if there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Pay attention to the signs, trust your instincts, and don't ignore the red flags. Because once the betrayal hits, it hits hard, and you better be ready to fight for yourself. After I gathered enough evidence and made my decision to fight back, everything moved so fast I barely had time to breathe. Of course, was doing everything she could to spin her story. She started playing the victim, saying I was controlling, jealous, paranoid. She'd cry about how she needed space and how I was accusing her of stuff she didn't do. It was classic manipulation, but I could see right through her. She thought she could get away with everything just because she's good at lying and crying on cue. But I wasn't falling for it. I was done being naive. I hired a lawyer, someone who specialized in divorce and property disputes, and we got to work. The first thing we did was file for a legal separation to freeze the house and our assets. Was furious, of course. She threw tantrums, claiming she had rights to the house because she was married to me and contributing in her own way. She kept insisting that her affair with Daniel was just a fling, that she never meant for it to get so out of hand, and that I was just overreacting. She kept calling me insecure, saying I was jealous of her success, her relationship with her boss. But I knew better. I knew she was lying, and I had the proof to back it up. The legal process was a nightmare. Hired her own lawyer, and suddenly, every conversation, every email, every dollar stolen was part of a bigger fight. She kept claiming she deserved half the house because she was entitled, even though she was the one who'd betrayed me repeatedly and stole from us. The more she fought, the more I saw her true colors. She was ruthless, manipulative, and willing to do anything to get her way. She even tried to accuse me of abuse, which was laughable. She's the one who's been sneaking around, lying, stealing, and now trying to take what's mine. Meanwhile, I kept digging. I hired a private investigator to follow her just to see if she was up to anything else. Turns out she'd been meeting Daniel in shady spots late at night and even trying to contact some of her colleagues to get them to lie on her behalf. I found out she also transferred some of the stolen money into offshore accounts, probably to hide it from the law. It was all so disgusting. I couldn't believe I married someone capable of this level of betrayal. It made me question everything, even myself. How did I not see this coming? How did I let my guard down? The emotional toll was brutal. I felt angry, betrayed, hurt, and exhausted all at once. Every day was sometimes I'd be furious and ready to fight. Other times I'd feel so broken I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone again. I'd lie awake at night, replaying everything, trying to find the moment I missed the signs. But deep down, I knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her win, not after everything. I had to protect what was mine, the house, our savings, my dignity. One thing that struck me was how she kept lying, even when I had the evidence. She'd deny everything, say I was crazy, or try to turn the tables and blame me for her actions. She called me controlling and said I was jealous of her success at work. She even accused me of trying to ruin her, which was laughable. I knew her game now. She was trying to make me the bad guy, hoping I'd back down or feel guilty. But I refused. I had nothing to hide, and I was determined to see this through. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. As the legal fight intensified, I started to realize that its main goal was to take the house and our savings, even if it meant destroying me in the process. She's always been bitchy, manipulative, and relentless when she wants something. I could see her trying to play the victim, claiming she deserved everything because she sacrificed for us in her own way. But I knew the truth. The truth was she'd betrayed me, stolen from us, and was now trying to steal everything we'd worked for. I had to stay focused, stay calm, and keep fighting for what was rightfully mine. The hardest part was watching her try to guilt-trip me at every turn. She'd cry, say she loved me, and then turn around and lie again. She'd say she was sorry, but her actions told a different story. I couldn't trust her anymore. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone cold, calculating, and willing to do anything to win. But I also knew I couldn't just be angry forever. I had to be smart, strategic, and patient. I had to let the law do its work, and I had to prepare myself for the worst, because I knew she wouldn't give up easily. In the end, I learned that trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. But I also learned that strength comes from within. I may have been, but I'm not going down without a fight. I won't let her take everything from me, especially not my house and my peace of mind. I'm determined to hold on to what's mine, no matter how dirty she plays or how much she tries to manipulate the situation. Because at the end of the day, I know the truth, and I know I deserve better than this betrayal. The legal battle was turning into a nightmare, was relentless, and her lawyer was doing everything to twist the narrative in her favor. They filed motions, subpoenas, and even tried to get the court to grant her temporary custody of the house. I knew she was desperate, but I also knew she was dangerous. She lied so much that I had to double-check everything, and I kept finding more lies. She claimed she was innocent, that she'd never stolen a penny or cheated on me, but her actions spoke louder than words. The evidence was mounting, and I was determined to see justice done. One morning, I received a call from my lawyer. He told me he'd been caught trying to transfer more money offshore, another chunk of the stolen $200, $0. Apparently, she'd hired a new lawyer to help her push for the house, claiming it was her right because she'd contributed emotionally and because she was entitled after everything she'd sacrificed. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone. She was willing to lie, cheat, steal, and manipulate her way through this entire mess just to get what she wanted. It made me sick, but I also knew I had to stay strong and keep fighting. At this point, I'd already hired a forensic accountant who was working around the clock to trace every dime she'd taken. We uncovered more hidden accounts, shell companies, and offshore transfers. It was a tangled web of lies, and I was determined to expose her. I also started preparing a detailed timeline of her actions. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every shady meeting with Daniel. I wanted the court to see how calculated and manipulative she'd been. I knew this wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about integrity, honesty, and the betrayal of everything I thought we had. Meanwhile's attitude was getting uglier. She'd call me names, accuse me of controlling her, and try to guilt-trip me into backing down. She said I was jealous of her success, that I was trying to ruin her, and that I was just insecure because she was better than me at everything. She even threw in some accusations about how I was secretly abusive because I dared to question her. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go, but I refused to be drawn into her game. I stayed calm, kept gathering evidence, and let my lawyer handle the legal side. I also started to think about the emotional toll this was taking on me. I felt like I was losing my mind some days. The betrayal was so deep, I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone again. I was angry at myself for not noticing sooner, for not seeing how she'd been sneaking around and stealing. But I also knew I had to stay pragmatic. I couldn't let her manipulate me into giving up or making rash decisions. That's when I realized I needed to focus on my own mental health. I started seeing a therapist just to talk through everything. It helped, just having someone listen and give me perspective. One night I sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling numb. I thought about all the years I'd spent building our life, working hard, saving, dreaming of a future together. And now it felt like all of that was slipping away. The house, our savings, my trust, all being threatened by her lies and greed. But deep down, I knew I couldn't let her win. I had to keep fighting, not just for the house or the money, but for my own dignity. I refused to be the guy who got played and then walked away with nothing. The most shocking thing was her latest move. She filed a counterclaim, saying that she deserved a bigger share of the house because she was the primary caregiver during our marriage. That was a new level of audacity. She claimed she'd sacrificed everything for us, that I was never there emotionally, and that she'd been the one holding everything together. It was classic manipulation, trying to make herself look like the victim again. But I knew better. I knew she was just trying to justify her theft and her affair. I had all the evidence to prove otherwise. I felt a mix of rage and sadness. Rage because she'd betrayed me so deeply, and sadness because I'd loved her once, and now I was fighting to save what was left of my life. I wondered how I'd ended up here in this mess, fighting for a house that once symbolized our future. But I also knew I couldn't give up. I had to keep going, keep fighting for what was rightfully mine. I had to stay focused on the endgame, exposing her lies, proving her theft, and making sure she paid for what she'd done. I realized that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. But I also learned that resilience isn't about forgetting or forgiving everything. It's about standing firm, facing the storm, and doing what's necessary to protect yourself. I'm not sure what the future holds. I might lose the house, I might lose some money, but I know one thing. I won't let her destroy me. I'll fight until the bitter end because I deserve that much. And honestly, I hope others in similar situations realize that sometimes the only way out is to take control, gather your evidence, and fight with everything you've got. Because betrayal like this doesn't just hurt, it changes you. And you have to be strong enough to face that change head on. By the time I reached the fifth stage of this nightmare, I'd become a different person, more cautious, more guarded, and painfully aware of how fragile trust really is. Desperation was mounting. She'd lost her cool a few times, throwing tantrums, accusing me of trying to ruin her, claiming I was abusive and controlling just because I dared to question her lies. It was all so transparent now. Her game was to paint herself as the victim, to turn everyone against me, and to manipulate the court into giving her what she wanted: our house, our savings, everything. I had been working closely with my lawyer, Mark, and a forensic accountant. Our strategy was clear: gather every shred of evidence, expose her lies, and make her look as bad as she was. We had her on the ropes with the offshore bank transfers, her secret meetings with Daniel, and her attempts to hide the stolen funds. I knew she was trying to spin her story to the court, claiming she'd contributed emotionally and that she deserved half because she was the primary caregiver. That was her latest card, and I had to be ready for it. One day I found out I'd hired a new lawyer, someone aggressive, sharp, and willing to fight dirty. That was no surprise. She was doubling down, trying to intimidate me into backing off. But I'd been through enough to know that her tactics were just distractions. I kept my focus on the facts. I had my own legal team, and I was determined to push forward. I filed a motion to have the house appraised independently to settle the valuation once and for all. The lawyer objected, claiming I was trying to delay and manipulate, but I knew better. I wasn't trying to stall, I was trying to get what was fair. Meanwhile, behavior was becoming more erratic. She'd call me names, accuse me of trying to ruin her reputation, and then burst into tears when she thought no one was watching. I could see her trying to manipulate the court, to paint herself as the wronged wife, the victim of my controlling ways, but I knew her too well now. I'd seen her lies, her manipulations, her attempts to hide the stolen money. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had to keep my guard up. One night, I got a call from the private investigator I'd hired. He told me he'd been secretly meeting with her lawyer, trying to negotiate a settlement behind my back. I was furious. She was scheming, trying to cut a deal that would leave me with nothing. I knew she'd do anything, lie, cheat, steal, to get her way. That's when I decided I couldn't trust her anymore. I had to be prepared for a fight to the bitter end. I also started talking to a therapist. I needed to process everything: the betrayal, the anger, the shame. It was hard to admit how much I'd been hurt, but talking helped. I realized I'd been carrying so much pain and disappointment, and I needed to find a way to move forward, no matter what the outcome of this legal mess was. I couldn't let her drag me down forever. I had to stay strong for myself. The most shocking development was her new tactic. She claimed she'd been coerced into her affair, that Daniel had manipulated her, and that she was not responsible for her actions. She even tried to persuade the court that she deserved a larger share of the house because she'd sacrificed her career to support us. It was all so absurd. She was basically trying to rewrite history, to make herself look like the victim, even though the evidence was clear about her theft and her affair. I kept my composure through it all. I knew the truth, and I knew I had to keep fighting. I wanted justice, not just for the money or the house, but for my own dignity. I'd been betrayed, lied to, and manipulated, but I refused to let her win. I was determined to see this through, no matter how ugly it got. Every day I reminded myself that I deserved better than this. I deserved honesty, trust, and respect. And if I had to go through hell to get it, so be it. Looking back now, I realize how much this has changed me. I'm not the same man I was when I married her. I'm more cautious, more aware, and definitely more wary of people's true intentions. But I also know that I'm stronger than I thought. I've faced betrayal, deception, and outright theft, and I'm still standing. I've learned that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even when it feels like the whole world is against you. And I know that once someone betrays your trust that deeply, rebuilding it isn't worth it. Better to cut your losses, fight for what's yours, and move on. That's what I intend to do, because I deserve peace, respect, and a fresh start. The final stretch of this ordeal has been nothing short of a nightmare, but I've come to realize some hard truths about trust, betrayal, and resilience. Schemes reached a fever pitch. She tried every dirty trick in the book, filing false claims, accusing me of abuse, even attempting to sway the court with emotional appeals about how she sacrificed everything for us. But I had my evidence, my lawyer, and a growing sense that her manipulations were crumbling under the weight of the truth. The court proceedings dragged on for months. The lawyer pushed hard to claim half the house, citing her emotional contributions and her sacrifices. But every piece of evidence I presented painted a different picture, one of betrayal, theft, and lies. The bank statements, offshore transfer records, messages with Daniel, all pointing to her deceit. My forensic accountant uncovered even more hidden accounts, and I had sworn affidavits from friends who confirmed her secret meetings and manipulative behavior. It was a battle of facts versus lies, and I was determined to come out on top. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. The judge awarded me full ownership of the house and was ordered to pay back the stolen money plus interest. The judge also noted her manipulative tactics and dishonesty, which played a role in the verdict. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Relief that justice was served, but emptiness because of everything I'd lost: my trust, my peace of mind, and the life I thought I had with her. The aftermath was a whirlwind. I moved out of the house, leaving behind the memories and the betrayal. Tried to spin it as a victory for her, but I knew better. She was the one who brought this on herself. She's now fighting a losing legal battle to claim more, but I've got my lawyer working on protecting my rights. I've also started the process of rebuilding my life, focused on myself, my career, and eventually trust again. Looking back, I see how much this experience has changed me. I'm more guarded now, yes, but also more aware of the warning signs and the importance of safeguarding my own well-being. I've learned that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes the only way to survive it is to confront it head-on with honesty, evidence, and a firm resolve. I've also learned that forgiveness isn't always about reconciliation. Sometimes it's about forgiving yourself for trusting someone who didn't deserve it and moving forward. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, I'll say this: trust your instincts, protect your heart, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. The pain of betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches resilience. You will heal and you will come out stronger. I did. I may have lost a lot, but I gained clarity and a renewed sense of self-worth. The journey isn't over, but I know now that I am capable of surviving anything life throws my way. And that, I guess, is the greatest lesson of all.